Hello, we are live. Should I say I am live? Patrick is still in the U.S. I'm down here in Puerto Rico. I don't even know how much longer we're going to be here in Puerto Rico. Our crazy house here that we've built our studio out in the basement has I don't know that it's technically been sold yet, but it's under contract, and I'm pretty sure it's going to sell. And so our lease is ending January 1st of 2022. And, we've been trying to find a house in this neighborhood to buy. And if you think the real estate in the U.S. has gone crazy, it has gone way crazier here. Basically, the homeowner offered this house to me for 1.2. I said no. And then when I came back after having my baby, the house was 1.7. And I assume that's what it's selling for. So $500,000 in like 3 months for no reason. So crazy situation. Anyway, today we're going to be critiquing nighttime or dark, images that look like they were taken at night. I apologize for being late on this. I've been working on a few other things. I actually have finished finally with my rough draft of my book, which is just now gone to editing, so I'm sure I still have a lot more work on that, but that's kind of what I've been working on for I've been working on it for like 4 years, but for the last few months, it's what I've been focusing on. Let's go ahead and start looking at some photos, shall we? You guys can head over to fstoppers.com/contests and follow along with these images if you want to. You can also sign up for the next contest as well. The next contest is going to be on repetition. So if you have any images with repeating features, go ahead and submit those for the next critique. But let's go ahead and rank these photos. This is an interesting shot because I can't figure out exactly what's real and what's not real in this shot. I read what the photographer had said, and he was like, obviously I've done a lot of post-processing, but I don't know what that means. I don't know. He said he waited until night to shoot it, which makes me think this wasn't shot in a studio, but I can't tell what, is she in this triangle thing? Is this triangle thing even a real thing? Is this all, created in Photoshop? I'm not sure. But it's awesome looking. He did say that the fabric, he took 2 different shots and kind of blended them together to create that hoop look. What do I rate this? I'm going to give this 4 stars. This is an excellent image in my opinion. What is this image for? I don't know. I don't know what you do with this sort of thing, but it could definitely be used in advertising or something. I've certainly seen images. You've got dancers and these, kind of computer-generated futuristic backgrounds. I think it looks awesome. Because I'm the only one doing this critique, I can't easily jump between the website and name the photographer who did it. So again, if you go to fstoppers.com/contest, if you're watching right now on YouTube, it's in the description. You can click over. You can see who it is, check out their other portfolio. But this was the highest rated image. And this image, let's see. I do not know how much. It was rated like 3.8 or something like that, and I gave it 4 stars. Next up. Now, remember, I specifically mentioned in the last critique that for this one, we've done nighttime photography before, and of course we got tons of nighttime landscape photos. We got the star shots, the Milky Way shots, star trails, airplane, satellite trails, stuff like that. And I said, I'm not going to tell you you can't submit that, but I'm really excited to see other images that were taken at night. And so I was really excited. These were the 2 highest rated shots. I think this was the 2nd highest rated shot. And this is awesome. Rugby shot, nighttime, looks studio lit, but I guess this is just you know, what it looks like when you have that style of like that ring of lighting that goes around the entire stadium. You get to see such an interesting angle here. It's very rare that you get to see an athlete in a stadium up against the sky like this. I mean, usually it's almost like the photographer's right on the field or something. Like, I'm not sure how they got this angle. You would think if they were back on the sideline shooting with a telephoto lens to get this, they wouldn't be able to get the sky. But maybe the stadium just isn't quite as tall as some other ones that I've seen. But it's cool to be able to see the dark night sky, because otherwise you may not really know what time of day it is. But super cool. I'm going to give this 4 stars as well. I feel like the lighting's amazing, the background's amazing. It's one of these accidental Renaissance images, you know, it could be a painting or something. So I'm a big fan. Next up. Here is the featured image of the critique. And I realize that I'm doing this like midday on a Sunday, so probably nobody saw this critique coming. So I apologize, guys. I'll try to do them on weekdays from now on. And being that the thumbnail was not a picture of me, people probably didn't even notice it. But I thought this was such a cool image, and anybody who's into cars or car photography, hopefully they would stop and at least give it a second look. I'm not sure what car this is. Somebody in the comments said this was the new Taycan. I'm not sure. I know this is going to be offensive to you people, but I feel like so many Porsches they all look the exact same to me. I realize this is a 4-door, so that kind of narrows it down, but I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of the styling of Porsches. Let's talk about this photo. Do I like the composition? Is it weird to you guys that the car is right in the middle of the shot and you kind of have all this dead space along the bottom? If I zoom in a little bit and do something like that, does that feel better to you? Just zoomed out this much with not that much going on in the bottom of the frame feels weird to me. It feels like the photography, I mean, obviously the wet ground is, I guess, a little more interesting than the black sky. But I don't know. It just, I feel like this image is so much more powerful when you zoom in a little bit and you go past all that black nothingness. Interesting lighting on the car. It's kind of being lit from all sides. Professional car photographers have the ability to light cars from above. So if they were shooting this in a studio or whatever, they would hang one of those gigantic soft boxes that's, you know, twice as big as the car itself directly above the car and have that down lighting. That's very difficult to pull off for an amateur photographer who's on location shooting. This car does have highlights along the top. I'm not sure how they were created. If you guys search for car photography and f-stoppers on YouTube, we've done it a few different ways. We did one shoot with a professional guy in the studio and we showed how that works, and then we did another photo shoot. I took a shot of my father's 1968 Camaro, and I went to an abandoned gas station and I used the gas station like a giant scrim. So I lit the roof of the gas station and the light came down and hit the car, and we got kind of a similar look. How do you guys feel about the rims being sharp? Do we want them moving? It looks like we have some movement in the water, but then we don't have movement on the car, which makes me feel like, you know, this image is kind of fake. Now, obviously, you know, a lot of these droplets are somewhat sharp, maybe. But for this to feel like it's moving to me, I think I want to add some blur to those tires, maybe even a little bit of blur to the car, like the water hitting the car or something. That doesn't have to be done on location. You could do that in Photoshop. But overall, I like this image. I feel like I'm not, maybe my biggest complaint is the composition. My second biggest complaint is it's just too sharp. I want it to feel like this car is sliding towards me or something. Am I going to give it 3 stars or 4 stars? I'm probably going to give it 3 stars. But I do like it. I feel like whoever shot this is very talented. They know what they're doing. With just a little bit more work in post, I think this could be an easy 4 for sure. And then do something with that background. Add some blurry buildings or something in that, you know, black background that you have there, and boom, you're getting close to a 5-star image at that point. Next up. Now, the second I saw this image, I knew exactly who took it, and I'm sorry to say I've forgotten his name. But this photographer has become known, at least on F-Stoppers, hopefully in his world as well, for creating these just incredible scenes. Getting, you know, I don't know if actors are the right word, but these models that, you know, fit the scene perfectly. He dresses them, he styles the scene, he does really unique lighting, and then fantastic post-processing to create these images that, you know, you look at and you go, that's a cool shot, and then you really start looking and go, oh man, what's really going on in this image? You know, what's the story here? And I think he's already won like 6 critiques, so you're not winning again. Oh, and I'm sorry, the very first image, you were the highest rated image. So send me a private message on fstoppers.com. Let me know which tutorial you would like from fstoppers.com/store, and I will get that sent right over to you. So this guy's obviously digging, you know, what I would assume is some sort of grave. Really cool lighting, you know, he's got that hair/kicker light coming from behind, which is the lantern, you know, and then the really blue light, you know, that's kind of representing moonlight or whatever. I was going to say, or headlights. He had some headlights coming over hills and other shots. But I feel like the direction of the light is too high. So it's either moonlight or it's a spaceship. I'm in between a 4 and a 5 on this. I mean, I feel like this is so good. This photographer does an amazing job of just really thinking about every detail on these images. And although the car bothered me, kind of being right in the middle of the frame in this shot, it works. Having this guy small right in the middle of the frame, I love it. But you do not get a free tutorial. You can't get another one. You've probably gotten them all already. Now, this was one of the higher rated images, and I told you guys that I wasn't that excited about starscapes, but this shot is done really well. I also feel like I've seen this shot before. Potentially this shot has been submitted a few times in the past. I'm not sure. We've probably already rated it multiple times. But I do really like it. Do I rate this 3 or 4 stars? There's elements of this that are kind of cartoony. Like maybe the shadows have been pulled back a little bit too much or something, but sometimes when I feel like images are too HDR-ish and they look a little over-processed on a digital screen like this, when I see them printed, they look fantastic. I've used the example before. I don't know if you guys have seen Peter Lick's work. He's a very famous current landscape photographer. He's got really impressive galleries in big cities like Las Vegas. Speaking of Las Vegas, if anybody lives in Las Vegas or is going to Las Vegas, July 10th, we are throwing Patrick a bachelor party, and I believe the night of the 10th is the UFC fight. We're not going to actually go to the event itself. Tickets are like $1,000 each for cheap tickets, but we're trying to figure out some cool sports book or some cool casino where we could buy tickets and like get food and drinks, but then in between fights gamble and stuff. And so if anybody's in Vegas or they're going to be in Vegas, you know a place to go to, or you want to come out and party with us that night, that'll be the final night we're there. The more the merrier. I think it'll be a good time. This shot, back to the critique. Anyway, Peter Lick. His shots, when I see them online, look horrible to me. They look really over-processed and like bloomy. If you guys know, like you pull that shadow highlight filter in Photoshop and it just adds this like halo around everything. It looks like that digitally. And then when I go to his gallery and see the prints, 6 feet wide, I don't see a hint of it. And I can't quite figure out why that is. But maybe he makes them look worse online on purpose so people don't try to print them. But this seems like one of those shots that looks a little bit HDR-ish to me here, but printed out, it might look awesome. I'm going to go 3 star. I don't know. It's a 3 or 4. Go back, find this in the past, and I probably rated it something different. But I'm going to go 3 stars on this. I like it a lot. The subject matter isn't that exciting. So for that reason, I'm going 3 stars. David says, wouldn't the bars and the casinos show the fight? I'm sure they would. I want to make sure that we go to a really cool place. So I think UFC 200, I was in Vegas, and we went into a casino and we paid to be in a restaurant. I don't know if it was like a Wild Wings or something, but it had a really cool setup where we had our own seats, TVs everywhere, but then we could walk out and they would hold our table and we could gamble, and then we could come right back and like everything was still there and we could continue drinking our drinks and eat our food and everything. So I want something like that, or like a big sports book area where we could easily walk up and bet on the fights and stuff, but then kind of have reserved seating. A bar is kind of difficult if people are fighting over the seats. I want to be able to get up and kind of walk around during the fights. We've got another nightscape shot here. I don't know what's going on with the lighting here. I mean, it kind of looks like we've got a sunset on the right and then we've got stars up above, which, if you guys know anything about photography, is impossible to do. I'm not sure I really care, but hardcore landscape photographers would be very offended. That being said, I have taken photos with a full moon before, and when you do long enough exposures with a full moon, it straight up looks like daytime. The thing that I'm not sure you get though, I don't think you could get yellow moonlight and then blue starlight. I don't think that's possible. I think it would all be a similar white balance, which makes me feel like these are multiple images that are blended together. I imagine this photographer set up, shot images at sunset, continued shooting once the stars came up, and then blended them together. That's what I assume happened, but I could be wrong. What do I rate this image? Do I like it more than this other one? I think so. I am going to be hard. I'm going to go 3 stars again. I'm going to... Does it bother anybody else that the mountains are not centered? Maybe he didn't center them because these mountains over here are kind of interesting, and then we've also got the interesting Milky Way. So if he cropped that, I'm not even going to be able to do it with the way this works, but I don't know. The composition at times feels correct, but then at other times I'm like, it's pushed a little bit to the right. Anyway, moving on. We've got another image taken at night that's not a landscape, so I was happy about this submission. I've seen similar shots with kneeling football players. This location is particularly weird, right? Like, what is this? Is this really a school? Is this a football field? Or is this... It feels like some sort of industrial park to me or something. But then why would there be, grass in the middle of it? I don't know. And you get the smokestack off to the right, which is really weird. I'm going to be a little rough on this image. I don't love the location, but that's not my biggest issue with it. My biggest issue with it is this guy's pose feels very uncomfortable to me. I don't know. It doesn't feel like this is something he naturally does. It kind of feels like the photographer forced him into some position that he doesn't feel quite comfortable in. And then I don't like the lighting. We've got super hard lighting that just kind of makes it feel like, and notice the brightness on his face and his knee, and then, watch it just kind of completely lose power on the football and his shin and everything. It just kind of feels like a mistake to me. Almost like this was taken, I don't think it was, but it almost feels like it was taken with a wide angle lens and an on-camera speed light. I think the flash is a little bit higher than on top of the camera, but that's just the way it feels to me. I do like the fact that they have an additional light around the back. You can see on this left side over here, we've got this nice highlight on his calf and arm there, and I think that looks really good. I don't think that's natural, which then makes me wonder, was the flash back there in the shot and it's been photoshopped out? Or is it just off frame to the left? I'm not exactly sure. But for all of these reasons, I have to be tough and give this 2 stars. I'm sorry. Here's another really highly rated image that was taken at night, and this feels familiar to me as well. I feel like maybe a couple of these shots we have already critiqued before. And I think I remember Patrick and I trying to debate, like, what the heck is going on here? Is this a forest fire? Was this thing hit by lightning? Did somebody set this thing on fire? Is there freaking lava on the ground? Like, what the heck is going on in this image? And stupid me, I included it in this critique, and I failed to read what the photographer said about it. So if somebody happens to be on YouTube Live right now and wants to let us know in the live chat what this photographer actually did, what was the story behind this image, I would appreciate it. What do I rate this? I think I'm going to give this 3 stars. Like, it's very difficult to rate images like this. Like, what the heck is going on? in this image, if this was some sort of like once in a lifetime, like, oh my gosh, the volcano's erupting and this tree was right outside of this building and they caught it and it's going to go down in the history books, then all of a sudden, you know, maybe this is some world-class image. If this is just a normal fire or something, or somebody set this on fire themselves because they're trying to, you know, clear the land or something, it doesn't feel as special. I always struggle, you know, with determining what makes an image valuable or not, you know, and I want to be able to rate the image just by the image itself, but in situations like this, I can't necessarily say that the photographer is ultra talented, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, the composition's fine, but it's not like it's a particularly unique composition or unique lighting or anything. It's kind of just, I shot what was in front of me, but what happened to be in front of me was super interesting. So I think I'm sticking with 3 stars for this one. Astro Steve says, this is an oak tree in that residential neighborhood that burned along with the homes that were behind me. And then he deleted that comment. So I don't know if that's true or not. Go to fstoppers.com/contests and read for yourself. This is super cool. So I've seen a few people doing images like this. And for those of you who don't know what the heck is going on, it may be a little confusing at first, but what these photographers are doing are putting lights on drones and then firing the lights down and then telling the drone, and you can do this with a lot of DJI drones now, you can tell the drone to make a circle around this point. So it will kind of do the job for you automatically, which is pretty crazy. And then when you take a long exposure and you have a light source that's moving in a big path like that, it's creating a large, soft light source. So it feels very strange to us as humans to see a tree lit like this, because in our minds, the only way that we have ever seen a tree lit with a soft light source where the light falls off from top to bottom. Notice how bright it is on the top, and notice how quickly the light falls off towards the, you know, the bottom of the tree. The only way we would have ever seen that in our entire lives is on a miniature tree, right? I mean, if you know, it was like a really small tree and somebody was holding a flashlight or something right above that tree, then this lighting would make sense. But never in nature would there be a large light source hovering right above a full-size tree. That doesn't exist. I can't think of a single way that would happen in the real world. I mean, even if a big cloud came over that tree, the cloud is so far away from the tree, it would create soft light, but the light would not fall off this quickly. It would, the tree would be lit evenly from top to bottom, whereas right now we can see that light falling off, which just, it freaks people out when they see stuff like this, because it just doesn't feel real, because it's not. But I guess it is. It's just not natural. What do I rate this? Here's the issue. I think it's super interesting. Definitely weird to see lighting like this on such a big natural object, but is this tree photo worthy? Would you ever shoot this tree for any reason if you weren't doing this? And that is my problem. I feel like we've taken an incredibly boring subject and we've made it fairly interesting with the lighting. But what if we could do this same type of lighting with a really interesting subject, right? Go to a tree, and this makes me think, I mean, there's the tree, is it called the Wanaka tree? Many people say it's the most famous tree in the world. It's in New Zealand. And it's this tree that grows in a lake. So it's completely, it's got water all around it. And as far as I can remember, I don't think I have seen an image where that tree has been lit at night with a drone. It's probably been done now. You could probably Google it. It probably exists, but I have not seen it. But that tree is so incredible that I think it could be really, really cool. And then you could do some really wacky stuff too, because you could light that tree and then you could Photoshop out the light trail. And that would really freak people. Like, no one would be able to figure out what the heck's going on in your images at that point. What do I rate this image, though? I guess I'll give it 3 stars because it's interesting. But when you really think about, like, does it belong in your portfolio? I feel like this image would belong in your portfolio if you had a series of images lit like this with these interesting light trails. But otherwise, this location and this tree, not that interesting. Very interesting shot here. I believe, yeah, final image. We've got what I assume is the photographer here lighting himself. And then we've got star trails with a cave. And I'm looking at this cave, and like, I don't know if you guys can see these details. I just wonder, like, how much of the lighting on this cave is for real? Like, is that just natural moon and starlight with a long exposure? It feels like the cave is being lit with really hard lighting, like almost like this guy's flash is the thing that's lighting up the inside of this cave as well. And then the star trails, in case you guys don't know, the way that's done is you take tons of images over the course of hours, and then you stack those images in Photoshop, and those individual spots of light, which are the stars, become lines, and then you can start messing with like the contrast, and you can start doing really heavy noise reduction, and you can get them to look, a little too good to be true with a little bit of pushing and pulling. I feel like this image is a little over the top, but at the same time, it looks really awesome to me. I think I'm going to give this 4 stars. I'm sure if I was more of a professional star trail photographer, maybe I'd have more to critique, or I'd notice details and stuff. I've done it a few times now. Really, I've just kind of watched Elia do it. I think it's cool. I think it's really cool, and I think having the person in the shot makes it. I think without having this guy in there, you wouldn't be able to see how big this cave is, and that really makes it special for me. As I mentioned earlier, the first image was the highest rated image, and you get a free tutorial. I have to choose one other winner. Normally I give it to another photo that I really like, but this time I'm going to give it to my least favorite image of the critique. The problem that we're running into is the people that keep winning the critiques have won them multiple times. They're just kind of destroying the competition. So let's give it to somebody else for a change. I don't assume this person has won a free tutorial, so feel free to send me a message on a private message on fstoppers.com. Let me know which tutorial you would like from fstoppers.com/store, and I will get that sent right over to you. Well, guys, that wraps up this critique. I'll hang out with you for a second and answer any questions you guys might have for a few minutes. I have jiu-jitsu in 30 minutes that I have to get to. And, oh, if anybody's watching right now and you want to be a part of the next critique, head over to fstoppers.com/contests. The next critique is going to be on repetition or repeating patterns in photographs. Maybe we've done that one before too. We've been doing critiques for so many years now that there's going to be some repeats. Hopefully we just get new submissions. Photo Mike, it's good to hear from you. He says the star trails are cool, like the low ISO trails to retain the color of the stars. Yeah, something about the colors in that final image are a little too good to be true. I don't know if you guys noticed, but there's like purples and blues and whites and yellow and orange and red. So I think some funny business has been done to this image. And the other funny thing to me about the star trails and the Milky Way shots is photographers, landscape photographers, have this code where they would never just Photoshop in the Milky Way or star trails. They will stay out all night to make these star trails, but then they'll Photoshop the crap out of it. When in reality, like, you could just add, you should just take one shot of the Milky Way you like and one shot of star trails and then Photoshop that into your image, and it would be like 99% the same as you blending together images, 500 images in Photoshop. What's the difference? But for some reason, one of them is crossing the line. You're not allowed to take star trails from one image and put it into another, but you are allowed to take 500 images and stack them together and whack out the colors and the saturation and everything. For some reason, that's totally fine, so who knows? Grim says he's thinking of going full frame, maybe Sony or Lumix. Would you recommend waiting for the new models? So I would imagine, because of the way you wrote that, you're thinking still photography. It seems crazy to me to get into a Panasonic camera to shoot stills. Just, they've got their own proprietary mounting system, and they've got their new lenses and stuff, but third-party manufacturers are not going to be jumping on board to Panasonic as quickly as they are to Sony or Canon or Nikon or whatever, so I can't recommend that. Obviously, I'm a huge fan of Panasonic with the GH5. I have not gone full frame with Panasonic. I jumped over to Sony, and Sony, I really dig aspects, but I do prefer the button layout, the ergonomics of Panasonic. It just makes a little bit more sense to me than Sony. But then again, Sony actually has working autofocus, so if you're a video shooter, there's really no comparison there. So basically, I'm telling you, if you're shooting stills and you're thinking between Panasonic and Sony, I'm going to say definitely go Sony. And then we got to be getting close to the Sony a7 IV, right? So the a7 III, I had one of those, and I rarely used it. But when I needed autofocus for video, I would all the time. There was just a few weird things about that camera, like it didn't have the flippy screen, so I couldn't see myself. It didn't have a full-size HDMI jack. It couldn't do eye autofocus while it was connected to like an iPad. So I would be filming myself and I'd connect to an iPad so that I could hit record, but then it couldn't do eye autofocus when my iPad was connected, which like defeats the whole purpose. So then I have to upgrade to the Sony a7S III. Yes. So I have two of those now, and I like them, but they're just so expensive at $3,500 for a 12 megapixel camera. It's just so expensive. So I'm not that excited to buy more of those. I would love the Sony. Oh, and then the other problem is, like, every time I use that camera to shoot stills, I feel guilty. Like, what if I take an incredible photo and I only have 12 megapixels? Seems kind of like a waste. doesn't it? Like I'm going to wish that I shot on my Nikon or something. So for that reason, I feel like I would prefer a Sony a7 IV that could be like the best of both worlds, and it could be really a good still camera and a really good video camera. When I bought the Sony a7S III, I thought I was giving up megapixels to gain ISO performance, and it really wasn't that much better. So for that reason, if you're shooting stills, yeah, maybe wait for the Sony a7 IV. Hope I'm. I've been so out of the game when it comes to gear recently. I just don't care. It's like everything is so good now. You can take great photos and video with anything. Oh, and I will say, have you guys watched the what's it called? Inside, the Bo Burnham or whatever his name is. He's a comedian. He just released a special on Netflix. It's not like the funniest thing I've ever seen, but I was so inspired watching it. This guy, during the pandemic, buys the Panasonic full-frame camera, lights, films, edits, records, writes the music too, does an entire one-man special in this little crappy room completely by himself. And even if I didn't feel like, you know, it was my favorite comedy special of all time, it was definitely the most inspiring comedy special of all time. Like, it's so cool to see somebody do that much with so little. He had one camera, really crappy lighting, cheapo gear in relation to what, you know, most people are doing, using to film Netflix stuff. And it was really good. It was really good. So I'm not saying go out and watch the whole thing, but if you have Netflix, turn it on and just kind of get a vibe of what he did, and then feel really bad about yourself because you accomplished nothing during COVID lockdowns, just like me. David says, I've barely even used my camera. Most of the time I just shoot with my phone and it's good enough. I kind of agree with you. It just depends on what the photo is for. So if you guys are Facebook friends with me on Facebook, I just did a photo shoot with my wife and son, and we did it in the studio. And I actually shot that with the Sony a7S III. So it was one of those shoots where it's only 12 megapixels, and I cropped into a lot of the images, so they're probably like 8 or 6 megapixels now. But I really like those pictures, and you know, that photo shoot, I'm waiting on approval from Profoto to release it, but I have a whole video about that and everything. And most of the time, I'm not trying to take artistic photos. For that, I was. But most of the time, like, I just want to capture the moment, you know? And I don't need everything to be a work of art. Nor do I want... It's like sometimes when things become a work of art, it's like it's not even real anymore. And I'm saying this as somebody who was a wedding photographer for 15 years. And I don't know, I just kind of got a bad taste in my mouth. Like, I would see these people waste $100,000 on a party, and then they wouldn't even seem like they would like it. They'd be so stressed out about stupid stuff, like the flowers not being the right color, or like, oh my gosh, I wanted to get this one photo and I'm posing like this because I saw it on Instagram this one time and we forgot to get it, oh my God. And I'm like, shouldn't you be happy you're getting married, you know? Like, why do you care about replicating other people's photos? So, you know, as a wedding photographer, obviously, like, pose pictures are important. I wanted to get some really special shots, but for me personally, like, I just feel like a lot of the most important photos in my life are not ones taken by a professional photographer with a professional camera. They were just like really incredible memories. Like when I look back at when my wife and I were just dating, and we look so young and we're so happy, and it's like, oh man, that's when you were living in New York and that was that awesome restaurant that we love so much that doesn't exist anymore. Like, that's what's so awesome about photography. Or one aspect of what can be so awesome about photography. And so I don't know, maybe for years I was so wrapped up in the gear and the lighting, and like I wanted my images to look so special. And then once you kind of like peel back the cover and I learn how it's done, and then I meet some of the best photographers in the world that I looked up to, and I see what they're doing, and I'm like, oh, it's not that special, and it's kind of fake and cheesy or whatever. It's like, I don't know, it just loses a little bit of magic. And so at this point in my life, I appreciate both. I appreciate a very well-made, unique photograph, and I also appreciate just a raw photo that, you know, tells the story of when you were there. Gordon Ryan, George St. Pierre, and the Danaher Death Squad have been training at Combat 360 in Wainabo, PR. Have you thought of training up there? Yes, I went to one of their classes. And it was quite an experience. So first of all, I don't know what the etiquette is for their school. I don't know what the etiquette is for schools that are at that level, right? It's like every single person in the Danaher Death Squad, in case you guys don't know what we're talking about, like the greatest jiu-jitsu fighter and the greatest jiu-jitsu coach and school in the world moved to Puerto Rico 8 months ago or something, from New York to Puerto Rico. So when there's a gym that has like the best fighters in the world, they're literally professional athletes, do they want dummies like me coming in? Like, and it's funny because when they moved here, a lot of my buddies in the jiu-jitsu class here in Humacao were like, oh, let's start going to their gym. And part of me was excited about that, but then the other part of me was like, why would they even want us to come to their gym? Maybe they want some fresh meat. Maybe they want some, you know, some crappy jiu-jitsu fighters just to beat up and like practice new things on, maybe. But then on the other hand, it's kind of like, hey, I play pickup basketball. I'm going to start going to practice with LeBron James. You know, like, does LeBron James need me so that he can practice like slamming on me or like guarding me so he can try some new moves? Does he need that? Or would me showing up to practice with LeBron James like really ruin practice for him? So the one class that I went to, I was invited by my instructor, who was invited by the owner of the gym. So we were allowed to be there. And so there was like the local crowd kind of on one side of the gym, and then there was the Danaher Death Squad on the other side. And then when John started teaching, everybody would huddle around, and it's like, you know, it's this weird situation because John Danaher, I know 99% of the people watching this don't know who he is. But if you watch the Joe Rogan podcast, you may have seen some stuff with him. Like, he used to train George St. Pierre, who was one of the greatest, you know, UFC fighters of all time. Like, this guy is like a living legend, and he sells jiu-jitsu tutorials online. I assume he makes millions of dollars selling these tutorials online. And so it's weird to have him right in front of you teaching you. And then it's also weird because he's teaching the most minute details of jiu-jitsu that like I don't even understand, right? So my gym doesn't allow blue belts to even do leg locks. And that's all he was teaching. And I was a blue belt then. Now I'm purple, but maybe I don't even know if I'm allowed to do leg locks. But basically my gym does not do leg locks. And his gym, that is their specialty. So I basically look like a dumbass, and I don't know what's going on, and I roll with a few of like the locals who, that's their home gym, but they're just allowing the Death Squad to train there while they open their gym. I don't exactly know the details of how that works. And then I rolled with a few of the guys who were with the Death Squad. And it was like they were wrestling a child. Like they used no strength, and they would just put me in one foot lock, leg lock, ankle lock, knee bar thing again and again and again. And I was like, I didn't even know what was happening. So I left being a little inspired and a little just like, oh, I should never go back there because I'm just wasting their time and mine. So I don't know exactly how I felt about it. I'm sure eventually I'll go back there. Like, I'm friends with some of the guys from that gym and stuff, like through other people, and so I'm sure it'll eventually work out. I also thought, if you guys have seen John Danaher's instructional tutorials, have some of the most horrific production value ever. Him and Gordon Ryan. It's like it's filmed on a freaking cell phone without a microphone. So I thought, like, hey, if I could strike up a relationship with them, I could probably film their tutorials and actually make them like good and fun to watch. But I don't know. Like, I shook their hand and was like, hey, thanks for having me. But I definitely did not strike up a relationship with anybody in that gym. So that's how it was. Jiu-jitsu people don't have the same mindset as a basketball player. They're more willing to teach and share. You might be right about that, but again, these people are professional athletes. I love teaching people who suck at jiu-jitsu how to do jiu-jitsu. Every time a new white belt comes in, like in 30 minutes, I'm going to go do an open mat. A new white belt's coming, and I'm going to give them an intro to jiu-jitsu class, and I really like that. But like, if you are literally training for a fight versus like a killer coming up in a few months, and you know, there's tens or hundreds of thousands of dollars on the line, like, why would you want I would just imagine their gym in the United States, and maybe I'm wrong, but I would just imagine there was classes that were open to the public, and then there were competition classes that people like me would not be allowed to go to. And as far as I know, here in Puerto Rico right now, because they don't have their own gym, it's just kind of like one class, and I don't think it's open to the public, but it's open to like the normal members of that gym and then the Death Squad. But I just wouldn't imagine they would want casual fighters to come in, but who knows. Chris says, don't give up, Lee. Maybe I won't give up, but I need to go get ready to go because I only have a few minutes. Thanks for watching, guys. Again, head over to fstoppers.com/contest to be part of the next critique, and I promise I will actually do the critique on time next time. Sorry to make you guys wait this time. I will see you all soon.